and there's truth to both sides. However, people have really gotten caught up in the narratives, right? I think both sides, even progressives, have gotten just kind of got derailed. So when we're talking about immigration, right? When we're talking about immigration from the perspective of the Middle East, oftentimes, those people are referred to as refugees, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because that's something that they title and label people from the Middle East with. But if you notice, like I've said before on plenty of other episodes, it's not a label they give to everybody, just people that are referenced, or that can be referenced and regarded as Muslim. That isn't the title they give Mexicans; those are immigrants. Or the title they give Cubans, they're seeking political asylum; those are political prisoners. And if you're Canadian, then well, you're just Canadian. Nobody really asks questions when you come over the border, so be thankful. But when we're talking about the Middle East and how their people may migrate into our country, people realize quickly that the issue around immigration in that sense has more to do with how we behave ourselves in that nation or those nations, whether it be establishing coups and infiltrating countries like Somalia, or whether it be bombing countries like Yemen and Syria or Afghanistan, or making false claims about, weapons of mass destruction, killing millions of innocent Iraqis, seemingly without, I don't even know what the result of that's been. Oftentimes, whenever we do this, we have this behavior, we never really know what comes next, right? When we unseated Gaddafi, I use unseat as a very light term because what really happened is we assassinated him, we murdered him, we committed a war crime. I mean, truthfully, let's be really honest about this. If we went to the International Criminal Court and that International Criminal Court was unbiased, there's a 99% chance that almost all of our world leaders would be found guilty. Actually, George Bush and Bush Cheney were actually found guilty. They're not allowed to travel, by the way. Didn't know if you knew that. You're never going to see George Bush, for example, go travel to I don't know. Maybe he will travel to Sweden, because I'm sure he has money there. But for the most part, Bush, Cheney, and a few more politicians, believe it or not. Unfortunately, one of Bernie Sanders' politicians is on that list. They can't travel, and so when it comes to those countries, we understand that there is a root to the immigration problem that caused Brexit. If the people who voted in favor of Brexit for the reasons they've described as mass influx of refugees and they're losing their country, and those same people are not taking responsibility for why those refugees came into the country to begin with. A lot of people will cite, terrorist attacks, but for the EU specifically, a lot of those terrorist attacks come from not EU passport holders. No, actually, yeah, EU passport holders, licensed people from the EU, born and raised there for the most part. But we once again have these narratives being established that aren't actually dealing with the problem. So if we can recognize that for the Middle East, why is it so hard for us to look at South America and say, well, it seems that we're having a lot of the same issues in South America in regards to the immigration conversation as EU is having with the Middle East in the immigration conversation. Homes get blown up, economies get destroyed, bombs get dropped, wars get started, drugs get funneled, and they just walk their ass right into the country who's causing most of the havoc. That's no different. Why do you think Mexicans want to be here? You think they don't love their country? You think they don't love their family and miss their family? You think that somebody would risk sending their child across the border unaccompanied? You think that's happening because they don't want to see their child ever again? I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. That is a hell of a risk. given what we know about human trafficking in South America, especially since we're finding out more that these unaccompanied minors are getting picked up and put into trafficking, you think that the parents would risk something like that unless the alternative was probably and possibly worse? As in, maybe their kids become part of a gang because there's no other opportunity, and the only way they can protect themselves and their family is by joining gangs that are that revolve around the drug cartel. It happens. I mean, think about all the wars that we started in these countries. Think about how we control their economy by disastrous trade deals such as NAFTA. Rachel Maddow decided to have a little cry the other day, people. A little cry. A little. Oh my God, I just got this report. That said, I know it's hard to believe, but some kids got separated from their parents. And I'm crying about it because even though I've been talking about this for the last 2 weeks, I'm going to pretend like this is the first time I've ever gotten this report. And like, Rachel. I would believe you if you cried when this was happening under Obama. Now, don't mistake that for me deflecting, because Trump has a huge part that he needs to take responsibility for himself. He needs to be held accountable for the simple fact that, yeah, this may have been exacerbated under Obama, but you could have ended all of it right now. You could have even instituted a temporary executive order to deal with the problem right at this very moment. You have that power. But you didn't, because you're concerned at what it would look like to your voters, to your primary base. Yes or no? I mean, let's be honest. I don't think that it's wise to pretend like it's only Trump. I don't think it's wise to not call out Rachel Maddow's fake crying, and the reason why for both of these things, I don't think it's wise. I think that it's not wise because the only buzzwords we keep hearing are immigration, Mexico, Latinos, the border wall, Texas, California, Arizona. And because those are the only buzzwords that the media seems to be concerned with, guess what order we are going to address the problems in, policy-wise? Well, only the sexy policies get attention. Only the sexy policies get discussed. And the media dictates oftentimes which policies get discussed, because what happens is policy gets, a major incident happens, like what we're seeing with immigration reform, and polls get put out because the media makes it such a big deal because they care about the ratings. And so the polls really get determined by what the media talks about, because that's what people are reacting to, and that's going to be a huge topic of discussion during the elections, whether it be midterms or the 2020 elections. So when we have the only buzzwords being used as immigration, Mexicans, Salvadorians, Hondurans, Venezuelans, border walls, Texas, Trump, Jeff Sessions, what are we going to talk about? Immigration, Arizona, California, Venezuela, Honduras, Texas. We're not using the buzzwords that we should be using, like military-industrial complex, CIA intervention, funneling drug cartels. You better look up Pablo Escobar. He tells it all about how he was paid to do what he did, to funnel the drugs into this country, or to help funnel drugs into this country. We're not going to say buzzwords like disastrous trade deals. You get what I'm saying? These are the words that we should be using, but we're not using them. And that's on purpose. So when Rachel Maddow cries about the children who are being held captive, well, I won't say held, yeah, pretty much held captive, right? Who are separated from their families. If I shed tears for that, versus when she sheds tears, I'm not shedding tears. I'm not getting upset. I'm not getting fired up because they're in a cage. I'm fired up for the reason they ever had to leave their country to begin with. And the fact that we were absolutely involved in all the damage caused to all these nations that these people are primarily fleeing from. And I am even more outraged at the complicit nature of this country and its people in addressing those foundational issues that have caused so much turmoil and so much debate all over Central America and South America. Because these kids seem to feel, or their parents seem to feel, that these kids are in better hands by themselves, unaccompanied, while crossing the American border than staying another day. And staying another day in the city that they came from. Wow. That's worth a tear. That is worth a tear. But yet, I mean, let's be honest, right? Is Rachel Maddow crying about Yemen right now? The Rachel Maddow was beating the war drums for Syria. You don't think those kids would run here if they could, right over the border? I think they would. You don't think that the kids in occupied Palestine would run here if they got an opportunity versus being shot by a sniper because they had a rock in their hand? I think they would. Hell, the only good thing I can say about the situation is that at least these kids got over the border, so they have a chance, I guess. But what about the kids who never got their opportunity? What about the kids who never made it that far? What about the kids who are, when they see themselves, they see their friends and their family getting locked up by ICE, they're like, wow, they're lucky. At least they got that far. Here, I have absolutely no chance. But not one tear shed. I think that it's extremely, I don't want to say ignorant, because I understand that it's coming from a good place from most people. But I do want to be clear. Just because it's coming from a good place does not necessarily mean that it's coming from an educated place. I'm not trying to be offensive, but you really have to understand why it's important to make sure we're having the right conversations around these issues. And that's why I keep hammering this home. Before we move on, I want to have a brief discussion about why I know for a fact the media is trying to cover it up. Many of you may recognize the name Sema Hernandez. She was running against Beto O'Rourke in Texas. She got interviewed and by Fox News. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it's Fox News. It was one of the big three, but I remember it being conservative leaning, and that's what made it even more surprising. So they asked her about the immigration thing, right? She's Mexican. She was there. When she began to discuss why immigration was happening in the way it was, why it seemed to be out of control, when she started addressing the military-industrial complex, when she started addressing disastrous trade deals that kind of put countries like Mexico and a lot of others in a chokehold so that they can't grow naturally. They shut her off. They stopped it. They stopped the interview. Why? Why wouldn't you want someone who is educated, you know, who especially somebody who the immigration crisis hits close to home, is telling you, people from my home, people from my nationality are not leaving just because Mexico, they're just tired of Mexico. They're tired of what they have to deal with from the United States. And like I always say, which side of the barrel of the gun do you want to be on? The one that's pointing at you, or where the barrel's pointing at you, or the other side? And Sema Hernandez was interviewed, and they cut that interview off, people. They don't want to discuss substantively the issues that we have in this country, because at the end of the day, they don't want you voting based on the real issues. They don't want you voting because, like, what do we always say? Democrats are all about being anti-Trump, but very rarely are they anti-Trump policies. Now, what do I mean by that? Remember the lockout that happened in February of 2018. It was threatened initially, I think, in like November, but then January, end of January, beginning of February, the lockout. And I said, what's the lockout about? You know, Bernie Sanders came up and said this is about CHIP and protecting DACA recipients. Republicans said this is about our wall, keeping their jobs. Cool. I said, well, is there funding for DACA still? Well, yeah, for the time being, there is funding. Or is there funding for the wall still? Yeah, Chuck Schumer made sure that there was funding for that wall. Okay, so what's the argument about? Well, it's about our wall. It's about our jobs. It's about DACA recipients. It's about CHIP. It's about this. It's about that. The freeze ended, right? The government shutdown ended. Nothing happened. There was literally nothing that took place. Nothing. Absolutely. You know what should have shut the government down? The moment that a 715, maybe more, 745,000 maybe, $700 billion. That's all that matters. $700 billion budget for the military was approved. Whenever anyone put $700 billion anything where they couldn't allocate 10 to 15 billion of that to healthcare, the government should have been shut down. That should have shut the government down. No, you don't think so? Whenever that proposal didn't involve removing funding from Israel while they're committing war, I wouldn't even call it wartime atrocities. They're committing atrocities in the time of peace. Okay, that's relative. Peace is relative. Any war that's going on with Israel right now is Israel's fault. So let's be very clear about that. Israel's government's fault, I should say. But we should have been pulled funding from the Israeli government. That didn't stop anybody from shutting the government down. Bombing Syria didn't shut the government down. What to do with the moment that bill to stop arming Saudi Arabia with our weapons so they can destroy Yemen, and the moment that we have not introduced legislation to hold Saudi Arabia accountable, I should have shut the government down. But no, DACA, which I have explained over and over again, was always going to be upheld. It was always going to receive its funding because AIPAC wants DACA. A lot of Israelis use AIPAC. Israel's country is becoming a little overflowed. It's only so big. Their real estate prices are out of this world. Their tariffs The world doesn't like the government, so the people have to pay for it. They don't even have, you know how much a 2016 car would be in Israel? Holy crap, people. You don't want to know. They're happy if they get a 2002, 2003. So like the costs are spiking, and a lot of that money that they get from the United States goes back into Israel. So that DACA was never going anywhere. The wall, well, like I always said, white supremacy doesn't only reign supreme in conservative side. I had an argument today. There's a lot of progressives, a lot of Democrats specifically, neoliberal Democrats who are all about white supremacy. Yes, Ms. Hillary Clinton and her super predators, got to bring them to heel. That didn't shut the government down, people. They don't care. Nothing got done. Nothing changed after that shutdown. Literally nothing. It was a photo op. Single payer healthcare didn't shut it down. Bombing of innocent people didn't shut it down. People getting shot in the head by bullets and guns funded with our money didn't shut it down. But the narrative was all that mattered. Hey, Republicans aren't giving you what you want. Be angry and vote them out in 2018. Hey, Democrats aren't giving you what you want. Be angry. Vote them out in 2018. Hey, none of y'all are different from each other. The Democrats never call out Trump for his actual policies because they actually agree with almost everything Trump has done thus far. They really have. They really, really have. And the tax legislation that Trump did approve finally, which was written mostly by Republican politicians, the Democrats actually didn't have a problem with that until that legislation specifically attacked their states, which was kind of funny because I knew that happened because they had just been very ugly to everybody. So the Republicans kind of did it as a slap in the face to their constituency to piss them off because they know they can't win those states like New York and California anyway. So they hit them. But other than that, when do you hear what happened whenever Trump bombed Syria? What did the Democrats do? Nothing. They didn't do anything. They didn't do anything. Remember? Oh, actually, they did the opposite of nothing. They were, hey, beating that war drum. We must hold Assad accountable, but there's no proof. Hey, we didn't say that we needed proof to hold him accountable. I just said we got to do it. That's what we're dealing with right now, people. It's not right. It's not right that people for some reason believe that the Democrats are so different than the Republicans, that these Republicans are so much different than the Democrats, and that the Democrats are so much different than Trump, and vice versa, and the Republicans are so much different than Trump, and vice versa. No. For the most part, they're all the same, people. They're all the same. But hey, what do I know? So, I wanted to cover really fast a story that my good friend Jeff Campbell from the Progressive Army covered, actually. He had a pretty cool interview. You want to hear what the interview's titled? Some of you might love it. Hold on, I want to address some of these. Some people say they're having trouble hearing my volume. Now, I just want to be clear. If you have like a PC or a laptop, specifically a laptop that you're using, and you're listening to me out of those speakers, you're just not going to be able to hear me very well. People that I know who have MacBooks usually don't have much trouble hearing me. People who are listening to me on their cell phones never really have trouble hearing me. And people who listen out of their speakers never really have trouble hearing me either. But when people are listening to me, I know for a fact directly out of their PC speakers that aren't hooked up to anything external, it just isn't. It for some reason, you can blame it on YouTube. It just doesn't get loud enough. So it is what it is. I can't really control what you're listening to me on. All I can tell you that it is, if you have an alternative way to listen to me, then I would suggest doing so, because we don't want to go up too high, because we're going to start getting cracking and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. So definitely, if you can, I could turn it up a little bit for you all, but you definitely want to try using a different medium to listen to me on. That way, if you are, like I said, I can't control what computer you have or your speakers, and I don't want to bust anybody's eardrums. Shout out to all my iPhone users, because iPhone people never complain about what they're saying they can't hear me. So my friend Jeff Campbell covered a story about Alex Jones. I don't know if you all recall, but Alex Jones did some weird stuff the other day. Alex Jones chased Bernie Sanders through the airport, calling him a communist, calling him a man. He called him the king of communism, saying that he was scared of him, scared of Alex Jones, which, right, who wouldn't be scared of Alex Jones? Alex Jones is a psychopath, so there's that. And weirdly enough, which I was happy to hear, Alex Jones' ex-wife actually spoke on this incident and gave us a little bit of insight into how Alex Jones thinks. Now, you all know I have a problem with Alex Jones because I actually consider Alex Jones controlled opposition. And this interview that Alex Jones' wife, or ex-wife I should say, Kelly Jones, reaffirms what I had thought all along. So, earlier this month, Alex Jones harassed Bernie Sanders at the LAX airport. He repeated a litany of conspiracy theories about the senator, and at one point called him the king of communism. I spoke to his ex-wife, Kelly, about the incident and the ongoing battle for custody for their kids. Jeff said in the first question, Newsweek, are you told, referring to Kelly, you told Newsweek that your son was involved in the scene of harassment of Bernie Sanders at the international airport, at the encouragement, by the way, of his father, Alex Jones. And he asked her to elaborate. Kelly said this: yeah, it has been shocking to me the degree to which Alex is a hypocrite. I don't think that most people disagree with that. I've always said that Alex Jones is a hypocrite and that he's an opportunist. So I'm glad to hear somebody else say it too. This is more what Kelly said, while he was appealing to the people for donations, telling people he was being censored on YouTube, which is very much not the case, he had active filings in court trying to completely block me from my free speech. Also, Alex, to me, really overtly manifests or demonstrates hypocrisy to our children in many of his actions and lifestyle choices. Particularly, he has this spin about the elite, right? And Jeff agrees. And she said, this is Kelly once again. And I'm reading all this because it's really important to know how Alex Jones works. Well, when he was running through the airport chasing Bernie Sanders, saying, and she's paraphrasing, I bet you fly first class, which we know for a fact, people, right? Bernie doesn't fly first class. It was actually one of the highlights of the election because people kept running into him on airplanes sitting in coach. So we know he doesn't fly first class. And she said, I know that Alex flew first class on that trip, ironically. It can easily be corroborated. It has been my experience that he flies first class always. Rare against the elites, right? So what does that tell a child when you are calling someone else out for the thing that you are doing yourself? It's morally incorrect, it's unethical, and it's hypocritical. Then I believe what my son was saying on the video. I believe he was accusing Bernie of owning $1 million vacation house. I mean, Alex has multi-million-dollar plus houses, including one on a lake. So I do not see how this child who goes and stays at his father's $1 million vacation homes himself should be calling out Bernie Sanders on the possibility or speculation that he might own a vacation home or a lake house. It's concerningly hypocritical and alarming that my child has assimilated this proclivity that Alex has of accusing others of things that he himself is guilty of. He said Alex has built his empire off libertarian speech centered around small government and around concerns over overreaching police state actions and privacy issues. And of course, now he has become a mouthpiece for Donald Trump. I repeat, now he has become a mouthpiece for Donald Trump. Not that he is questioning Donald Trump. Not that he is on the side of, because like I said, there are people on the left and the right where we can converge on ideas. But Alex Jones is not one of them. This situation that happened in Arizona recently, he literally told people, do not go to that camp that was found, that it appeared kids had been there as a result of human trafficking in the area. And whenever the story broke, the news came out and they started arresting people. And it wasn't private property at the time. So they started arresting people for trespassing on property that wasn't private, so that these people couldn't talk anymore. They were arresting veterans, by the way. But and Alex Jones just said, don't go near it. It's fake. Seems like he's pretty selective about his conspiracy theories, huh? Donald Trump or his cabinet is overseeing things that are obviously alarming to people that are connected about civil liberties, which is true, and privacy, which he expanded the police state in that regard. He didn't reduce it, and things of that nature. It's horrible. So how does a child even process that? My dad says this is bad, like speaking in the voice of the child. And my dad says this is bad, but when I can call someone else out on it and maybe get a headline, I'm going to scream about it in the airport. It's horrible on so many levels. So, what we have learned, or what we have confirmed, is essentially that, hey, Alex Jones is the hypocrite that we all thought he was. And that's fine, I guess. Not really. It's not fine. This kind of goes back to my point that I've made about media over and over and over again. I've said time and time again that there is no way that you should believe somebody on either the left or the right who for some reason never actually criticizes or critiques in any substantive way the other side. Does that make sense? So what do I mean by that? We can go on the left, for example. Rachel Maddow is an easy target, so we'll talk about Rachel Maddow. When have we seen Rachel Maddow go after the Democrats? Don't worry, I'll wait. Nope, never. I'll go ahead and speed that up. Never happened. On the left, or on the right, excuse me. When have we ever seen Candace Owens critique the Republican Party or Donald Trump? Never. Not once. Not one single time. In fact, I watched Candace Owens' entire interview with Joe Rogan on the Joe Rogan Experience, his podcast that many of you are familiar with. Guess what happened? Joe Rogan said, yeah, Trump is a funny guy, and I don't think he's the worst thing in the world, but like, you gotta admit, some of his his outrage, some of his problems, like some of the things that he does, like, we should absolutely be a little worried, don't you think? She says, "Oh yeah, well," and moves on. Why? Well, Candace Owens gets paid from Turning Point USA, which is a Koch brothers funded organization. Why? Because Candace Owens doesn't want to lose her neocon, white supremacy apologetic base no more than Rachel Maddow wants to lose her neoliberal, and in some cases white supremacy apologetic base. In some cases, warmongering apologetic. We can look at Bill O'Reilly before he was fired. When did Bill O'Reilly ever come out against the Republicans? When has Joanne Reed ever held the Democrats accountable? We can look at. I'll give you a independent journalist example. Many of you are very familiar with the Young Turks. Sam Cedar is on the Young Turks. Believe it or not. He's not on the main show, but he's part of the Young Turks. He's part of the TYT network. Used to work for MSNBC. Jimmy Dore is also on the Young Turks. Sam Cedar literally said on an interview, or an episode I should say, where Tim Black from TVTV called in. He literally said, when Tim Black addressed the fact that the things that they were saying on those mainstream networks were bullshit, including the Russia narrative, including the narrative about Seth Rich, including all of that, he admitted that he repeats them and that he is okay with them because those narratives serve his side. Sam Cedar admitted this. I encourage you to go look at the interview with Sam Cedar and Tim Black, because it happened. He admitted this, people. What does Jimmy Dore talk about? Jimmy Dore calls out neoliberals. Jimmy Dore calls out Republicans and Trump. Jimmy Dore calls out Ro Khanna, who claimed to be a progressive. So who do you think is more dangerous? Who do you think is more dangerous? The person who will tell you everything about everybody despite what his own personal beliefs are, or despite what he has to gain from that? Do you understand what it like for me? You all know what I do. We know what my steez is. I'm objective to a fault. I hold the Republicans accountable. I hold the Democrats accountable. I hold neoliberals accountable. I hold my colleagues accountable. I don't attack everybody, but I hold everybody accountable. I hold myself accountable. Alex Jones is not exempt from that either. When you hold everybody accountable, guess what? Unfortunately, the reality of the situation is they assume because you critique them legitimately that you are not on their team, and therefore they do not want to watch you or support you, and that's fine. But guess what? You can trust me, right? Like, damn, I mean, shit, if he critiques his own people, I know that he's going to tell me the truth about mine. If he critiques his own side, or she critiques their own side, you know that they're going to tell you the truth about your side. Not only when it's beneficial to them, but regardless. Alex Jones is not one of these people who critiques his own side, whatever side that is. He used to be on a conspiratorial, like, I don't know, left, libertarian. I don't even know if I would call it libertarian. I don't think that Alex Jones is the definition of a libertarian. You know who is a libertarian that I am fond of? Ben Swan, for example. I love Ben Swan. Ben Swan's a libertarian. Joe Rogan is a libertarian. Myra's mom on YouTube she said the Jimmy Dore show is not part of TYT. Actually, yes, Myra, the Jimmy Dore show is a part of TYT, and the Jimmy Dore YouTube channel is owned by TYT. Believe it or not, it is actually one of the a lot of people always ask, why can't Jimmy Dore leave TYT? Well, he would lose his channel potentially, and that would mean him losing 300 to 400,000 followers or subscribers and have them start all over. Orthodium said, fake friends are more dangerous than open enemies. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth, people? What does he mean by that? He means remember people who watched me during the Democratic primaries. I said, oh, I would much rather have Trump than Hillary. And people were like, what the, oh my God, how could you say such a thing? Trump is the worst thing ever to happen to this world, you know? No, people. First of all, let me just go ahead and start by saying Trump is not the most overtly racist president that we've ever had. Not even close. Lyndon B. Johnson, to this day, was considered by the press, people who were covering him in the middle of interviews, as being a connoisseur of the N-word. Trump has actually, believe it or not, never even critiqued black people. He's never even attacked us during his presidential campaign. I mean, I'm not going to say that he prefers, I'm not going to say that he doesn't prefer to be around white people, maybe because that's where he's most comfortable, that's where he grew up, you know, that's how he grew up. I'm not going to say that, but I'm not going to say that he goes out of his way to attack the black community. Now, if you are a Mexican immigrant, or if you are an immigrant of really any kind at this point, then yeah, you have more reason to be upset with Trump than I personally would. And what the problems that I do have with Trump are because I am sympathetic and empathetic to those who are victims of racism or prejudice, no matter what ethnicity or nationality they are. Those are my problems. That's why I have a problem with Trump's rhetoric at times. Now, with that being said, Trump is also the only president that I know in recent history that has said, remember when he went to that church and he said, that cop need to be held accountable. I can't remember which, I think it was Philando Castile. He said that cop needs to be held accountable. No other presidential candidate was bold enough to say that. Trump technically had everything to lose for saying that. That was a divisive issue during the election. So I can't actually say that black people should hate Trump for the things that he's done during his presidency. I can't say that Mexicans probably should. The Latin community in general probably should. But if Hillary Clinton is my enemy, while I know Hillary Clinton is my enemy, but every step of the way, she said things that made you go, I don't think she's on my team, y'all. I don't think she's on my team, y'all. You know, super predators. You know, bring them to heel. You know what I tell my dog? I don't even tell my dog heel. I love him too much, like my child. So I don't even tell my dog heel. But you never told your child to heel. That is something you tell your animals. Right? Okay. Confederate Flag Day. Trump hasn't even touched the Confederate flag conversation. He hasn't rendered an opinion on it at all. But the fact that Hillary went out of her way to try and court black people, really all the primary, but remember, people, did she try to court us at all during the election, during the general election? Oh, that went out the window. Nope. Why? For what? I don't need to talk about that. Remember when those representatives from Black Lives Matter tried to approach her during the interview? What did she do? Progressives. Remember whenever somebody said, stop fracking, Hillary, will you make a pledge to not frack during the election? Will you make a pledge to not take oil money and stop fracking during the election? She was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Bruh. People. every time she would try to court us. Hot sauce, remember hot sauce in my bag swag? I'm not saying that black people should vote for me. All I'm saying is that pretend this is hot sauce. I'm just saying that, look, I have hot sauce in my bag. And I just happen to be on the Best Breakfast Club talking to black people. You know, I'm not saying that black people should vote for me. I'm just saying that black people should vote for me because of what I carry in my bag. Don't all black people like hot sauce? Okay, so maybe I like hot sauce. I love hot sauce. I actually put hot sauce on just about everything. I'm not gonna front. Hey, don't freaking judge me, bro. I really like hot sauce. That's not the point. The point is, she knows I like hot sauce. She tried to use it against me nefariously. You know you damn well don't like hot sauce. You don't carry in your bag all the time. And the fact that you even thought that you can bring it out of your bag and then we were just going to jump on your train. You thought that you was going to whip and name your ass to the Oval Office. You got another thing coming, bitch. Got me all upset and frustrated. Man, look, I don't play about my hot sauce. I don't play about my tapatio. See, some of y'all don't know about tapatio. Some of y'all use the red hot or the Tabasco. Tabasco isn't really hot like it used to be, so I don't really like, I don't like Tabasco all that much anymore. But I love my tapatio because it's that right blend of spiciness and flavor. What's the other one that starts with C? Can't remember what it's called anymore. But getting the right blend of spiciness and flavor is just so hard with hot sauce. And so when I see Hillary Clinton, I'm like, nah, come here. You're not dodging this question. Oh, Hillary Clinton, what's your favorite hot sauce? Go. Have the mic right up to her mouth. And if she doesn't say anything, I'm like, it took you too long to think. You never have to think about what your favorite hot sauce is if you are an avid hot sauce user. That is a fact. Ask anybody. You ask my brother right now. Sausage Factory, Cholula. He already knew what hot sauce I was talking about. That's exactly what I was talking about. Cholula is flavorful, but not hot enough for me. Anyway, but if I go to my brother right now, right? I was like, Q, what's your favorite hot sauce? Texas Pete, why? Where is it at? How much? What you got in your refrigerator right now? Texas Pete? Big size? What you got under your desk? Texas Pete? Small size. What if Texas Pete was out? What would you get next? Well, I wouldn't get anything next because I'm going to go to another store until I get my Texas Pete. We don't compromise when it comes to hot sauce. That is what hot sauce users are like. Y'all done got me on a hot sauce tangent, man. Look, I'm about to have some hot sauce on my food as soon as this podcast is over. But you definitely want to have tapatio if you are a big hot sauce fan. If you've never tried tapatio, do it. It makes everything taste Mexican. Not even exaggerating. It does. Fantastic. Anyway, so Hillary tried to court us, right? But who do you think I would trust? Do I want the person who is very loud, obnoxious, cussing me out, screaming at me, can never keep his plans or her plans to themselves? Like, is letting me know when he walks up, when I see you, I'm going to shoot you in the head so that you will no longer exist. Do you think I want that person in office? Or would I rather have the one who keeps, hey, here's some ice cream. Come get in my van. Don't I look like your friend? I don't look creepy at all. I don't, my van doesn't say, only kids between the ages of 1 and 11 get in. My ice cream truck siren doesn't sound weird. What do you mean you just found me on the sexual offender app? No, that's a different version of me. That's not even me. That's my twin. Sometimes we get confused. That van, well, yeah, the van is the same, but it's only because I borrowed it from him so I can get this ice cream salesperson job so that you can come buy ice cream for me. Yeah, I know I slid the whole door open when I could have easily handed you the ice cream out of the back window. But how are you going to see the crazy amount of flavors I have if I don't invite you in the truck? Yeah. Oh shit, rat poisoning. No, that's just the that's where I put my whipped cream. I have so much whipped cream in my truck that I had to empty out the rat poisoning container and I put the whipped cream in there. Just go ahead. Take a bite. It's cool. Yeah, that's Hillary Clinton. Pretending to be your friend with no good intentions whatsoever. Or a better example would be she literally smiles in your face, puts her arm around you, and stabs you right in the back. And looks at you the entire time. The entire time. Saying, well, we're still friends, right? Pat Hacker, all ice cream vendor trucks sound weird. Yes, that is very true. I don't think anybody could disagree with you there. But yeah, people, it is not. Well, I was about to use a quote from MLK, but but no, in all seriousness, it's not Trump that scares me. Some of his supporters and his following scare me. The amount of attention that the media has given him does, but not Trump. So, we're going to go on a brief break, people. About 5 minutes. I'll see you in a little bit. See you soon. Wow, people. Wow. I'm just like looking at this court case that I didn't want to get my hopes up for. I gave it a while. I didn't even speak on it when it first came out because I'm like, don't play with my feelings. Don't play with my heart right now, y'all. Don't play with my heart. Don't play with my soul right now. This IG report has brought us a lot of laughs and cries. A lot of vindication, people. And by the way, if you can't tell, I'm practicing my fake Rachel Maddow cry. But I actually do care about this. But still, you know, it's important to practice your fake crime because you never know when you're going to be an MSNBC host. You got to learn how to pretend to care even when you don't. So, but no, in all seriousness, people, somebody sent me a link to this court case. And it says a RICO complaint. And I was like, whoa, this isn't really that surprising because of the IG report, but I don't know about that. That would be a stretch, right? Yeah, I'm really good at making coffee, y'all. I'm just letting y'all know. Ooh, shout out to Tim Black. Make sure to have your coffee with Tim Black tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard. You can find Tim on any of his channels. YouTube, Tim Black TV or TBTV, Facebook Tim Black, or at Real Tim Black on Twitter. He comes on right after this show. So, before we get started, I want to go ahead and welcome you all back to this show. We have had all kinds of conversations regarding immigration today. We've had conversations regarding Alex Jones and his wife, where Alex Jones' wife kind of proves what we always thought about him, which is that he is a piece of, I don't know if I should, her mama, is my mama watching? If my mom's watching, I can't cuss because she be getting mad at me for cussing sometimes, y'all. We'll just call him a piece of feces. He's a piece of disposable feces. But so before we get started, as usual, I do want to give a shout out to AFR, American Freedom Radio. If you do not follow them, make sure that you follow them on Twitter, on Facebook. Go to their website and catch more great shows like this one. Obviously, I can't cover everything in the world, but the people on American Freedom Radio do a damn good job attempting to. So make sure you go there and follow them. Also, make sure that you go to justinforum.com. You can go ahead and join us in this revolution of social media that we have started. Join myself, Caitlin Johnstone, Elizabeth Lee Voss, Tim Black, and others, where you can have your conversations uncensored. You don't have to worry about having your news filtered. You'll be able to get all your content in one place. You know, whether it be from Twitter, whether it be from YouTube, whether it be from Facebook Live. Literally, you'll be able to get all of that in one place on justinforum.com. So go ahead and register today, and we'll go ahead and get you squared away. Now, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started on this next topic that we were just discussing. Whew. Y'all, I'm sorry. I just don't like getting my hopes up for things, but I'm going to get my hopes up for this because we really need it to happen. I got my hopes up for the IG report that was going to have some crazy revelations, and it did. So I don't have a problem getting my hopes up for this also. You want to hear how this starts off? I'm not even joking. You want to hear how this starts off? Actual home address withheld due to death threats and related danger to plaintiff from enterprise defendants, surrogates, participants, and others. Such address can be provided to the district court under seal. Yeah. So when you see something like that involves RICO, you know you're about to be in for some shit. So it just says the plaintiff, who appears to be Gary J. Byrne, which I think that's actually just the attorney, versus, listen to this list, the Clinton Foundation, aka Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation, 1200 President Clinton Avenue, Little Rock, Arkansas, 72201, via the Corporation Service Company. Also versus the Clinton Global Initiative. Also versus the Clinton Goostra Enterprise Partnership. Didn't even know that was a thing, but apparently it is. Also versus Media Matters. Oh yes, David Brock is apparently not free from this case. Also versus Correct the Record. Also versus the American Bridge 21st Century. Also versus Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. Also versus Share Blue. Also versus David Brock. Also versus Bill Clinton. Also versus Hillary Clinton, George Soros, John Podesta, Jonathan Wetcrow, and Jan Galuli. What just happened? Now this case was filed. This complaint, I should say, was filed on June the 15th. So essentially around the time, if not the exact day, that the news dropped with the IG report. We're all like, wow, this is kind of important. I hope everybody's paying attention to this. Apparently somebody was paying attention to this. I want to go over that one more time in case you missed this. I know some of y'all are just now getting back. This is a legitimate court case. It came from govs.uscourts.dcd. Okay? The plaintiff versus the Clinton Foundation, Bill Hillary, aka the Bill Hillary and Chelsea Clinton Foundation. Also versus the Clinton Global Initiative. Also versus the Clinton Goostra Enterprise Partnership. Also versus Media Matters. Also versus Correct the Record. Also versus the American Bridge 21st Century. Also versus Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. Also versus Share Blue. Also versus Corporate Trust Company. Also versus David Brock. Also versus William Jefferson Clinton, aka Bill Clinton. Also versus Hillary Rodham Clinton. Also versus George Soros. Also versus John Podesta. Also versus Jonathan Wetcrow. Also versus Jan Galuli. And numerous unknown named defendants. Wow. Wow. Background and RICO case statement. Through many attempts with the extraordinary office of the clerk of this honorable court, undersigned counsel has not been assured whether a RICO case statement is required, as it would be in many federal district courts across the United States. Out of an abundance of caution and in order to assist the court after being assured that a RICO case statement was never prohibited, this complaint and analogous follow-on complaints will be proceeded by such a case statement. As will be referenced below, allegations contained within the RICO case statement and RICO complaint are based upon good faith information and belief. Now, I don't know if you heard what I heard. A lot of RICOs. There's a lot of RICOs in there. Suzanne, I see you're on YouTube. You said the Podestas are missing. No, they're not. They're included. It says the Podesta. It says John Podesta. That's one of the defendants. So this is a part of the complaint. I'm not going to read all of it, but I want to read some of the heavy stuff. For the past decade in which relevant predicate acts were corruptly carried out by the named defendants as quote-unquote payback for plaintiff Gary Barnes' role in the Clinton impeachment and his status as a Clinton enemy. For his, that Gary Barnes. This is a Gary Barnes with pull. Wow. Okay. Anyway, payback for Gary Burns' role in the Clinton impeachment and his status as a Clinton enemy, quote unquote, for his temerity in telling the truth concerning obstruction of justice and gross abuse of power, along with their corrupt surrogates and collaborators, referenced individually and collectively as the Enterprise. David Brock and William and Hillary Clinton have been synonymous with criminal behavior and malicious baseless attacks, using mainly the illicit and vicious defamatory tactics against perceived political enemies like Officer Gary Burns, the plaintiff here, of those willing to compensate participants like David Brock, and coordinating by mail and wire to violate the myriad federal and state laws in the exploitation of enterprise nonprofit entities they use purely for partisan purposes. This enterprise has taken such attacks to an unprecedented and new chilling level, involving illegal domestic human and electronic surveillance. And in case you didn't know, people, and I'll post a link in the description below. They have outlined a plan that included David Brock's Media Matters, and how they're going to work with Facebook. It's in Free Beacon. It was put in the Free Beacon. This is like open news, but of course, anytime that stuff gets shared, it gets silenced almost immediately. But they're very clear about their outline of the plan to use Media Matters with Facebook. And I can tell you for a fact, I'm not going to say how I know, but my friends Suzanne Murphy and Don Mercel know exactly what I'm talking about in regards to Facebook. They are indeed using Facebook and other ways to monitor us, and which is probably illegal, but they're essentially disguising themselves as nonprofit organizations and then using those to connect themselves and people they hire onto Facebook and other platforms to spy on people. So essentially, they said this also involved illegal domestic human and electronic surveillance and trade crafts such as lures run by Byrne in order to obstruct the Hillary Clinton email and the Clinton Foundation investigation by the agencies of the Obama government, all against private citizens in order to assist Hillary Clinton become the 45th president of the United States, destroy Gary Byrne, and enrich themselves, according to the investigations of the United States Congress, and as anticipated to emerge the ongoing government investigations of Hillary Clinton and certain other enterprises named and unknown named, and high-level surrogates colluded with Russian intelligence, SVR, and FSB, and the disgraced, and according to the referral from the United States Senate Committee and Judiciary Committee, putative criminal, former British intelligence officer Christopher Steele, to accomplish their illicit and unconstitutional objectives. Now, I mean, it's going all the way in. I mean, I look. Now, according to the person who sent this to me, first of all, I read through it, of course. The person who sent it to me read through it as well. Spent about 5 hours reading through it. They actually had a lawyer look over it too. And it appears, ladies and gentlemen, this is legit. It talks about Uranium One. It talks about Robert Mueller. It talks about James Comey. It goes into detail about the Clinton Foundation. It goes into detail about retribution for Burns attempting to initiate, or we're not attempting, but making the attempt to get rid of Bill Clinton via the impeachment process when he was president of the United States of America. It talks about enterprise criminality, referencing the Clinton Foundation. It talks about John Podesta. Man, it talks about Barack Obama's, administration being used for partisan purposes in order to protect Hillary Clinton. I mean, it's 210 pages of just spitball, fire spitball after fire spitball from the deaths of this is from number 29 of the complaint. I'm gonna tell you what page it is. Give me a second, I'll let you know. Page 51, in case you're look. I'm gonna post a link to this, by the way, in the description if you're on YouTube. Complaint number 29. In addition to the enterprise's constant written repetition of slanderous statements about the plaintiff, Gary Barnes, by Gahuli and Whitecrow on both the website of Media Matters and Correct the Record. This is quote unquote from the desk of David Brock. What a surprise. Therein drawing inferences relevant therefrom, and the contradictory evidence shown by the testimony of White House principals during the time the plaintiff was stationed directly outside of the Oval Office. Media Matters and Correct the Records libeled Byrne by unambiguous and intentionally misstating that Burns had not fully told the truth under oath during his earlier testimony, which led to the impeachment of President Bill Clinton, the 42nd President of the United States of America, along with the production of the blue dress of President Clinton's paramour and the White House intern, staying with the president's seaman, with both of which led to the impeachment of President Clinton, and for which the enterprise had sought reprisal for decades. So now we gotta do a little. I'm about to type in Google. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna look up Gary Barnes. Oh. This is from, see if we got a recent one. So this is actually from the Washington Times in June 2016. I remember Gary. Gary's the Secret Service guy who came out with the book. And he said that he was going to do something like this. And he said he had a bunch of big things coming out on the Clintons, and it's likely that he didn't initiate this case in the beginning because they simply did not know whether or not Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton would be the one in charge when it was all said and done, because it seemed as if, unfortunately, that Hillary had it locked up, but that clearly was not the case. So I want to go ahead, and this is from the Washington Times. For weeks, nonstop press coverage, breathless buzz, and strategically released excerpts have been kept an unpublished book on the radar. Crisis of Character. A White House Secret Service officer discloses his first-hand experience with Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and how they operate, quote unquote, and has drawn intense public interest. Agent Gary J. Barnes, the bold expose. Ha! They forgot the accent. The bold expose of the Clinton White House lands on bookshelves. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and give this man a shout out. Go get that book. Go get that book, and it'll probably give you a big clue as to why he's able to give so much information, circumstantial and otherwise, in this RICO complaint. So it says the book details unsavory revelations about former President Bill Clinton's tenure at the White House, particularly pivotal time for the Democratic presidential nominee, which, like I said, this happened in 2016, which is where he came out. Not everybody is a fan. The Association of Former Agents of the United States Secret Service has already released a statement denouncing Mr. Barnes' book, and suggesting that the author has an underlying motive. You know who also didn't want information to come out before the election was over, except for the information that he chose to release? James Comey, who was also an agent of the United States of America. And of course, they would denounce it. Like, nobody, it's weird, nobody complained about James. Nobody in any of the alphabet organizations wanted to hold anybody accountable. They didn't complain about James Comey. They still haven't talked about Andrew McCabe. It had to go through hell and high water in order for us to even get it released that Andrew McCabe did in fact act partisanly, that James Comey did in fact act biasly as well, and so did Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. So it's weird that a book critiquing Clinton would get, you know, some backlash from the intelligence community, and yet James Comey is going to damn. He's a former director of the CIA and is talking more than a 16-year-old from the Babysitters Club, the sleepover, after having 8 glasses of wine. But hey, that's none of my business though. Anyway, I did not write this book, this is according to Burns, I did not write this book for partisan politics. I wrote it so that I could get the truth out. Now that I am retired, I also feel I have the responsibility to the American public to tell my story so you know what the truth is, Mr. Burns stated. In a newly released public video he produced to counter claims, this story is all true. This story is all true, according to Burns. So, I want to look up what Burns did during the 90s that pissed Bill Clinton off so bad. Gary Burns. But apparently, you know, Bill, it takes a lot to piss them. Actually, no, it doesn't. It does not actually take a lot to piss them off. Man, this is actually it is being covered by a lot of places. Of course, mostly conservative. I'm trying to get an excerpt from the book. Ooh, Sputnik News. Former Secret Service agent, President Bill Clinton snuck out to visit his lovers. That's not any news, man. What you talking about? No, I'm just kidding. We already knew that, though. Let me see. It actually goes into details talking about all of his mistresses. Talks about his mistresses as well. Talks about OTR. What the heck is an OTR? Oh, off the record. But the freedom of off the record under the president was soon to be abused. In one instance, it nearly cost an officer his life. President Clinton used the OTRs to visit well-known and lesser-known mistresses he frequented outside the complex, meaning the ones who did not have access to the White House. Good God. The latter line is a seeming reference to Monica Lewinsky, a summer White House intern who confessed to giving fellatio along with other sexual acts short of actual sex with Bill Clinton between 1995 and 1997. So essentially, when this guy came out with his book in 2016, I remember it. I remember because it was a big, big deal, right? It came out at the wrong time for Clinton. It came out at a great time for us. I remember seeing an interview about it. I remember people were critiquing it. And I do specifically remember, and a matter of fact, we can look up, let's look up what happens when we look up Snopes and Gary Barnes. Because I do remember they were like, is this book true? False. It's not true at all. Anything said about the Clintons, unless it's that they descended from heaven with the angels of Luke and Gabriel on their back, fighting for all black people with hot sauce in her bag. If it isn't that, then it's untrue. Yeah, nah. Let me see. Yeah. So I type in Gary Barnes. The first, this is why he's suing their ass. The first thing on Google comes up, right? Media Matters. You wanna know what the title says? Gary Burns' anti-Clinton book is contradicted by his own testimony, and he can't explain it. It starts off by saying former Secret Service officer Gary Burns, who served in the West Wing during the Clinton administration, recently released a Crisis of Character, an anti-Clinton book purporting to warn the country about how Hillary Clinton does not have temperament to serve as president. In promoting his book, Burns repeatedly stumbled through contradictions in his various accounts of the events he claimed to have witnessed, with key details differing between his 1998 sworn testimony and the Kenneth Starr investigation and the book itself, and the various appearances he has made on right-wing media. Woo! Those attacks seem salacious and unverified. Only some people will get that. But anyway, Gary Burns released anti-Clinton based. That's a really weirdly written sentence. But anyway, it says that Gary Burns released anti-Clinton based on incidents I think they meant book, based on incidents that he claimed to have witnessed decades ago. And they say that he has underlying motives, blah, 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 blah. BuzzFeed. Oh, well, if BuzzFeed is your source, Media Matters, then I think we have no choice but to trust everything that comes out of your mouth. Because it's not like BuzzFeed is getting sued right now for releasing for example, a dossier about maybe a president, maybe even the 45th president of the United States of America, about some Russia accusations, about the collusion potentially that never was proven, and now they're being sued for it. But hey, BuzzFeed, that's definitely a great primary source. Hey, I hope that next you quote Fox News as a primary source. That would be great. Maybe you should try that next. We want to make sure that people know that you're a very serious organization. I hate freaking Media Matters. I hate David Brock. Anyway, BuzzFeed outlined how Burns' claims were contradicted by his own testimony. Burns responded by hanging up on the reporter. BuzzFeed news reporter Chris Massey outlined two instances in which claims that Burns makes in his books are directly at odds with his sworn testimony from 1998 Kenneth Starr investigation. In the Crisis of Character, Burns writes about how he was personally involved with disposing of hand towels containing evidence that implicated Bill Clinton in an extramarital affair. Massey reported that, contrary to what Burns detailed in his book, that he testified that he was not involved in disposing the disposal of the president's hand towels, nor did he explicitly or conclusively discuss it with the White House steward at the time. Burns also claimed in the book that he had personally witnessed President Clinton kissing journalist Eleanor Mondale in the 1998 testimony. Burns framed the incident as a rumor he had just heard. When BuzzFeed contacted him about the contradictions, Burns hung up on the reporter, and his spokesperson promised Burns would explain the contradictions in our book tour appearance. So essentially, what probably happened was that BuzzFeed contacted Burns and they hung up on him. I mean, when they found out that BuzzFeed was the one calling them, what would you do? Given what we know now about BuzzFeed, seriously, given what we know now about BuzzFeed and how they kind of pander to the establishment, how they have kind of been known to lie a little bit, how they've kind of discussed any legitimate critiques of the Clintons or anybody on the left as right-wing conspiracy theorists, if you found out that BuzzFeed contacted you, what do you think they're contacting you for? to try and get you to twist your words, to try and get you to stumble, to even try and get you in a legitimate contradiction. You know, even if it's a small one. You know how Media Matters and BuzzFeed and these companies are. They'll make a big deal out of it. I'll give you an example. You all know I work pretty closely with Tim Canova. I would even say that we're friends. And I texted him one day. I said, man, who is this Tony? Oh, man, I can't remember his last name now. Man, I can't. It's a author from the Sun Sentinel. This dude's whole career over the last 2 years has been, Tim Canova, the conspiracy theorist. Tim Canova is anti-democrat. Tim Canova this. Tim Canova negative this. Tim Canova that. Tim Canova is a vegan. Can you believe he's a vegan? He doesn't like the plants. He's eating plants, this evil man. Tim Canova likes avocados. Oh, look at him. Eating avocados like a rich elitist. Tim Canova likes Starbucks. You know, like, the dude was attacking Tim Canova over and over and over and over again. So when Tim Canova goes to announce that he's independent, this guy shows up. I think his name is Tony Moran. That's what I think his name is. I want to say it's Tony Moran. Let me look it up. I'm not trying to shame the guy, but I'm just saying if you find out anything from him about Tim Canova, it's probably a lie. That's all I'm saying. But I want to make sure. I think Give me a second, people. No, it's Anthony Mann. That's his name. This is some of the stuff that he writes. The Sun Sentinel's Anthony Mann reports that Canova called the decision to destroy ballots from the race against Debbie Wasserman Schultz is mind-boggling, which is true. But you want to hear how it starts off? This is why you don't answer phone calls from BuzzFeed. For the same reason that I'm saying if Anthony Mann calls you in Florida and you're a progressive, hang up the damn phone. Records from the election, which Tim Canova lost, aren't entirely gone, but Snipes' office made electronic copies of the ballots before destroying the originals. Hey, fuck the fact that she broke the law. What does that have to do with anything? The ballots are stored in a different manner, said Bernadette Norris, outside the attorneys for elections office. Canova said that isn't good enough. Destroying the ballots when they're the subject of litigation is mind-boggling, Canova said in a telephone interview. Considering that Tim Canova is formerly an attorney, I think he would know. Because her office is subject to litigation on the matter, Snipes said that she was constrained by her ability to respond to Canova's comments. Because her office is subject to litigation on the matter, Snipes said that she was constrained in her ability to respond to Canova's comments. That's why she's not talking. I'm not surprised that Tim Canova is saying this. Of course, I do not agree with that. You don't agree with destroying the ballots while they're subject to litigation is mind-boggling? You don't agree with that statement. God forbid. Remember after the election, everybody was like, Trump stole the election. How? We don't even know, but we know he did it. Okay, well, you know Debbie Wasserman Schultz was aided in the destruction of ballots by the one who was literally in charge of elections in the area. You don't think, hold on. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. That's not the same thing. Not even close. Not the same thing, people. Canova said Snipes violated state and federal law, but it's not clear who is correct. Man, look. Anthony, man, could get a job at BuzzFeed right now. Right now. By the way, people, if you're on YouTube, as a little aside, don't be too shy. You can go ahead and drop a super chat with a comment, and I will go ahead and give you a little shout out on the show. Or you can donate to my Patreon at www.patreon.com/Mikasa Esukasa. But people, what I just described to you about this Tim Canova conversation, do you know what question Anthony Mann asked him at the announcement of his independent run? He said, now this is a big thing. Like former lifelong Democrat switching to independent because of election rigging is a huge, especially the one who he raised the most money out of any legislator that was running for office for the first time in the country. And I think he raised the most money out of any legislator independently. Like he didn't raise any money from super PACs. He raised the most money in the entire country during the 2016 elections. So the fact that he's switching to independent because the Democratic Party is just that freaking corrupt is a big deal. And I was there to cover it. Lawrence Steiner was there to cover it. A few other papers were there to cover it. And obviously Anthony Mann from the Sun Sentinel was there to cover it. Do you know what Anthony Mann asked him? Hey, how much money do you have in your account? Hey, how much money do you have? How much money do you have in your account, sir? What? He was like, what does that matter? As he should have asked. Nah, I mean, I just want to know how much money do you have in your account? And we're looking at this man like, boy, you are... So Lawrence Steiner and I call him out, as we should have. And he just kind of like, he's scared to look away. He's scared to look away. He's like, oh shit. That is why you don't, and then Tim, of course, doesn't answer his damn question. But what if Tim said, we have this amount? If it was too large, guess what Anthony Mann would have wrote about? Tim Canova, the supposed underdog, how did he get all that money in his account? Dum, dum, dum. If Tim Canova would have answered the other way, maybe he said too little. How does Tim Canova expect to beat Debbie Wasserman Schultz with such meager fundraising? Dum, dum, dum. There would literally be no answer that satisfies Anthony Mann's partisan journalism. So that's probably why Gary Burns hung up during the conversation with BuzzFeed. They were probably like, hey, this is BuzzFeed. Click. Not today. Not today, Satan. So this is a big deal. This is I'm going to definitely be following this closely. This is one of the reasons I'm so freaking happy Hillary Clinton didn't win. If Hillary Clinton would have won, all of the U.S. attorneys in this country would have been hers. That's what Bill Clinton did. Bill Clinton unseated all of the attorneys who were not loyal to him and his administration and replaced them with his people, which is why things like the Oklahoma City bombing were allowed to happen, because they contain all the files, the DEA files, how he partnered with the DEA and the ATF, who primarily deal with drugs. And then at the same time, he was accepting all this prison lobbyist money. There were people trying to sue him for collusion with the DEA and using them as like Gestapo hitmen. And then, passed the 3-strike rule. Crime bill that made the Clintons rich. That they're still taking money from. The prison industrial complex that they're still taking money from. They took those U.S. attorneys and replaced them. So what would Hillary Clinton would have? Like, people always say, but the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court. You want Trump to have the Supreme Court? Do I want Hillary Clinton to have the Supreme Court? Do I want Do you know what happens if Hillary Clinton was selecting the U.S. attorneys and the Supreme Court justices and all that good federal, putting her thumb on the scale for certain federal judges? There would be no DNC fraud lawsuit. This particular lawsuit would have absolutely no chance. Any chance of holding Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Chelsea Clinton, John Podesta, Tony Podesta, David Brock and Media Matters, the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative, Correct the Record, anybody involved in the Clinton Foundation, whether it be domestically or internationally, James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page. Am I missing anybody? Christopher Steele, potentially. The investigation in the Clinton Foundation that we now know was active during the election. If Hillary Clinton gets to select the Supreme Court justice, the rule of law in the United States of America would be non-existent. The rule of law in the United States of America, people, would be non-existent. The chain would be complete. People would have stopped paying attention, right? The glass ceiling has been broken! Yes! Okay, let's go back to Starbucks. I need my caramel macchiato. Okay? Let's talk about how great it is that a woman's president. Let's totally ignore all of the problems and the conflict of interest and the fact that the Clinton Global Initiative, whenever Hillary Clinton ran, whenever she ran the first time against Obama, she was told to end the Clinton Global Initiative. Didn't happen. When she became Secretary of State, Obama told her to end the Clinton Global Initiative. Didn't happen. When Hillary Clinton ran for President of the United States again in 2015, 2016, they said, end the Clinton Global Initiative. She said, I got you, homie. Just give me a few minutes. It stopped after she got her ass whooped. And then they restarted it back up. Because, hey, you got kicked on the ground, but how else are you going to win an election for Chelsea Clinton unless you can, give a favor for a favor? All right? Oh, man. So, party people, I do want to give you guys an important update. I'm gonna do an extended video about this later, but I do want to give an important update about the DNC fraud lawsuit because we're winding down on our time. Hold on, I want to get the press release up. Shout out to Jared and Liz for doing this, and shout out to Cullen O'Brien. Make sure that you go check out and buy the What Happened to Bernie Sanders book to help with all the appeals process for the DNC fraud lawsuit and all that good stuff. Shout out to all the people who have supported for so long. So, the oral arguments are set up for September the 25th. The appellate hearing for the DNC fraud lawsuit, Wilding et al. Versus the DNC et al. has been set. This will be on September 25th. So I want you all to do something for me. September the 25th. Mark this on your calendar. 2018, 12th floor, James Lawrence King Federal Justice Building, 99 Northeast 4th Street, Miami, Florida, 33132, 9 a.m. No camera phones, no cameras, no smartphones allowed. September the 25th, 9 a.m., Miami. If you wanted to protest the DNC, this is the place to do it. There needs to be overflow. There needs to be so many people in that courtroom who are outraged, who are pissed off, who have had their votes stolen, who has had their money wrongfully appropriated, who has had their voices silenced, who have now been told by the DNC attorneys themselves that they do not have to capitulate to what you want, to what's best for democracy, for what's best for the party, even for what's best for this country. They don't have to capitulate for that. They can pick who they like to in the back room by smoking cigars. This is supposed to be objective, but fuck all that. We need so many people angry and absolutely infuriated by the behavior of the DNC that they have to block off the streets, that they can't even hear inside the courtroom because there are so many people yelling about how pissed they are that they had their election stolen from them. Maybe you're one of the people in Arizona who had their voter registration switched, millions of people, by the way, almost exclusively Bernie Sanders supporters. Maybe you're one of the people who are dropped from the voter rolls in Brooklyn, who were silenced by the New York Board of Elections when they made you all, hell, I was there too. They tried to make us look like fools. And it comes out later that they absolutely knew what they were doing. They admitted guilt. Maybe you're one of the ones in California under Ray Lutz, in the case that he started against the Democratic Party regarding election fraud. Maybe you're a soldier from North Carolina who had your voting location switched last minute with absolutely no update to yourself. Maybe you're one of the ones from Flint or somebody from Michigan who was promised by Hillary Clinton that she would come back, that she would speak about you in the general election, that she would remember your plight. Maybe you were around in the 90s when Bill Clinton promised the world, but instead he legislated jails and perpetuated the already dominant war on drugs, aka the war on black people. Maybe you're an independent journalist who is tired of being censored because this is the same party that has now bought off Facebook. Maybe you're a Republican and you just don't like the Democratic Party. That's cool too. Maybe you're pissed at the media. Rachel Maddow, Joanne Reed, Cuomo. Maybe you're pissed at them for them trying to tell you that everything that you are saying was conspiracy theory. Because you read that IG report last week. And it verified every single thing that you said. From the Clinton Foundation investigation that we all knew was happening, but it was all claimed to be conspiracy. But instead, what they said was they kept it quiet on purpose. They let you be called a conspiracy theorist just so it wouldn't affect the outcome of the election. But hey, let's make these crazy claims about Russia. Maybe you were one of the ones they called a right-wing conspiracy theorist on Facebook by one of David Brock's bots. Maybe you used to have faith in our intelligence community before James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, and Lisa Page burned all of that to the ground. If you are from any of these categories and then some, mark September 25th, 9 a.m., Miami, Florida, on your calendar. And you come out with your signs, your rage, and you be outside of that building before those attorneys get there, before the DNC attorneys get there. Be outside of that building with your love and your support for the sacrifices that Jared and Liz and Colin have made, putting themselves out there on the line. We've all been threatened. Jared and Liz get harassed by neoliberals all the time. Threatened by the neoliberal establishment. You come out with your signs about Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Come out with your signs about Brenda Snipes. Just come out. This people is a bigger deal than what a lot of people realize, because most appeals don't get this far, especially in federal court. Only about 7 to 9% of appeals win. Do you understand what that means? That means the fact that we're even at this point is absolutely amazing. And it's not by coincidence. But if we don't show unity right now, if we let someone else fight our battles constantly, Liz, Jared, save the world. We're never going to see an end to the oligarchy. We're never going to see anybody held accountable. The reason that the DNC fraud lawsuit took place is because I had a choice. I said I can stay in my comfortable apartment in this super nice town of Chapel Hill, go to law school on a full ride, or we can fight. That's what we decided. So, with that being said, people, thank you all so much for tuning in. And more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.